When you're looking at a tender like the Newport 10ft 6in Inflatable Dinghy, the first question that pops up is usually, will this actually work for my boat, my crew, and my budget? It's a sensible hesitation because a tender that's too small, too flimsy, or too pricey can quickly become a sore spot in your boating routine. I spent a solid afternoon reading through the product description, checking the U.S. Coast Guard rating, and scrolling through a handful of owner photos on Amazon to see how people are actually using it on the water. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What follows is what I learned about the real-world value, the everyday pros and cons, and who will get the most out of this particular model. Let's start with the basics that matter once you've pulled the boat out of the bag. This Newport tender is built from a triple-layer, 0.9 mm, 100 denier PVC that's been specialty coated. That three-layer construction is what gives it the USCG 15 HP rating, meaning the boat can safely carry up to 5 adults with a small outboard motor of up to 15 horsepower. In plain language, that's enough power to get you from a dock to a mooring without having to lug a huge, hard-hull tender on a trailer. The material feels thicker than the budget inflatables you see on the clearance rack, and the coating gives it a slick finish that resists the usual sun bleaching you see after a summer of exposure. One of the strongest arguments for a boat of this size is the one-person launch scenario. If you own a mid-size sailboat or a modest powerboat that doesn't have a built-in tender, you've probably experienced the awkward dance of trying to launch a rigid tender from a low-lying dock. The Newport's inflatable nature lets you roll it out of the storage bag, inflate it with a foot pump or an electric inflator, and have it ready in under 10 minutes. In practice, that means you can swing it over to your main vessel while your friends are already on the water, and you won't need a crane or a heavy-duty trailer. For weekend cruisers who keep a small garage space, the storage advantage is genuine. The bag folds down to a size that fits in a standard closet, and the weight is light enough for 2 people to carry up to the dock. Now, let's talk about where the design shows its trade-offs. The 10-foot length puts a ceiling on how much gear you can bring along. I saw a few owners post pictures of the dinghy loaded with fishing rods, a cooler, and a small life jacket, and it still floated happily. However, when you start adding a full-size cooler, a dry bag, and a few extra chairs, the boat begins to sit lower in the water, and you'll feel the 15 HP limit more keenly. In choppy conditions, a fully loaded tender can start to feel tippy, especially if the weight isn't distributed evenly. The key is to keep the center of gravity low, place heavier items near the floor of the hull, and keep the passenger load balanced side to side. If you're planning long days of water sport activities that require a lot of equipment, you may find yourself wishing for a larger, rigid tender. Another practical point is the transom mounting system. Newport equips the dinghy with a built-in transom bracket that clicks onto a compatible boat transom. It's a convenient, quick-release setup, but it does require a transom with the right thickness and a few pre-drilled holes. Boats with a thin, fiberglass transom or a custom-shaped stern might need an adapter kit, which isn't included. If your primary boat has a standard metal or wooden transom, you'll be fine. If not, you'll either need to purchase an aftermarket bracket or consider a different tender that uses a different attachment method, like a winch and trolley. Who should actually consider buying this dinghy? If you're a day sailor who wants an easy toster tender for short trips to the shore, a small fishing expedition, or simply a way to get a few people out for a sunset cruise, the Newport 10ft Inflatable checks a lot of boxes. Its USCG rating assures you that the boat meets safety standards for the horsepower you'll likely use, and the triple-layer PVC gives it a durability edge over the cheapest inflatables that tend to split after a season of sun and salt. The price point, while not rock bottom, is competitive for a tender that includes a transom bracket, a storage bag, and a high-quality PVC skin. For a family of 4 who occasionally brings a friend along, this boat can replace a larger, more expensive hardshell tender that would sit idle most of the year. On the flip side, if you're a serious liveaboard owner who needs a robust tender to transport gear for a week-long offshore passage, this model may feel undersized. The 15 HP limit caps you at a relatively small outboard, and the inflatable hull, while sturdy, can't match the handling characteristics of a rigid fiberglass tender in heavy seas. Likewise, if you own a large yacht that typically carries a